Hello there, thrill seekers. It's Brad Warner, your number one source for all things Zen. How do you cultivate Buddhist non-attachment when you have a family and friends? Let's talk about that after 18 seconds of something close to the baseline of Family Affair by Sly and the Family Stone. Alright, I'm back, thrill seekers. That was close to the baseline from Family Affair, but I didn't get it quite right. Anyway, I got a question from someone on X, aka Twitter, and I love getting questions from people who watch my videos and listen to my stuff and read my books because I don't know what you guys want to hear about. So if you want to ask me a question, you can send your question to the email address on the screen below, which is bw@hardcorezen.info. That's bw@hardcorezen.info. Send me your questions, please. Okay, this question is one that I have received so many times I have no idea how many times I've received it. And I know I've done at least one video about this in the past, and it's called Attachment is Fuel, and I will leave a link below in case you want to watch that one. But the question is, having/starting a family while also seeking and practicing non-attachment. So this is an interesting question because it kind of gets into my lack of knowledge of what's sort of out there in the ether, on the internets, and the various magazines and stuff that sort of purport to be talking about Buddhism that are out there, because I'm kind of out of the loop when it comes to that stuff. I don't go on Buddhist internet forums. I don't really read the Buddhist magazines very much. I don't pay attention to that stuff. I kind of had my teacher and my two teachers, and that's where I learned my Buddhism from. And one of the things that never came up in that I can even recall ever being mentioned in any of the talks and things I heard from either of my two Buddhist teachers was this idea of cultivating non-attachment. So I'm not exactly sure what people mean and where they're getting it from. But let me tell you how I understand it. First, I want to talk about that video that I did, I don't know how many years ago, called Attachment is Fuel. And it was based upon an article by, how do we say this? Tanasiro Bhikkhu, who is Jeffrey DeGraff. That's what it says right there. It gives both of his names. And the article is Mind Like Fire Unbound, Chapter 2. It must be chapter 2 of a book. I'll also leave a link to this in the below in the what do you call the thing below in the description section on YouTube or on Patreon. So what this article talks about is the word upadana. Upadana is a Sanskrit word, or probably Pali word. Maybe it's the same in Sanskrit and Pali. They're often the same or very similar. And it is the word that is often translated as attachment in English. But what it actually means is more like fuel to burn a fire. So the idea that they had back in those days of fire was quite different from how we think of fire these days in the West and our sort of, scientific mindset. They thought of fire as clinging to the thing that it was burning. So the fire was often used as a metaphor for clinging, for something that's stuck to something else. So the idea here is fuel or clinging. So clinging, in this sense, is probably a better understanding of the concept than attachment. So I think the way a lot of people think of this is they think that there is something they provisionally label attachment, and it's in their mind or it's somewhere in their body or whatever. And it is their attachment to their family, to their friends, to their loved ones, to anything else that they have. And that what Buddhists are asking us to do when they talk about non-attachment, these Buddhists on the internet or wherever they are, not my teachers, when they talk about non-attachment, is they think that the idea might be to sort of take that attachment, which wherever it is in our head or wherever it is, and remove it forcibly, remove it out and throw it away. So there's no more attachment. And then forever, from now on and forever, because I've removed attachment from myself, then I won't have attachment anymore, and it'll be great. Another thing I think that comes up just based on the way these questions are worded whenever I get them, is that they think it's bad to love your family and friends and to be attached to them, to be like, I like my wife. I have a wife and I have a dog, and I have an extended big Mexican family that I married into a few years ago, and I have attachments to them in that sense, in the sort of Western sense that we mean by attachment. And I don't think that this is something you can ever get rid of, because, okay, I think a lot of this question is mixed up with the idea of what you do when you become a monk. And one of the things that happens, the ceremony that happens when you become a monk is called shuke in Japanese. And it literally means leaving home, or sometimes people say leaving home and family. So the idea is, Shozan Jack Haubner, my friend who does the video channel Zen Confidential, talked about this in one of his recent videos. I don't know which one. But he talked about this ceremony in which he did this, which was a bit different from the ceremony I had, where he literally invited his parents to the ceremony, and then he had to do these bows to his parents to signify that he was leaving them, and then bows to his teacher to say that I am joining you now. I'm leaving this family behind and joining this Sangha. But the thing is, most people who do that, they don't really leave their families. It's not like they're just going like, bye-bye, go away, people. They still have contact with their families. The past, in the present, it's still part of their lives. What they're doing is conceptually leaving that world of, wanting stuff and trying to make your way in normal society, and then joining the sort of Buddhist society, which is different. But you better believe that if you join a Sangha, especially if you join a monastic community, you're going to develop attachments for the people in that monastic community. You're going to start loving them and caring for them. Dogen died when he was 54 years old, which was, even in the 1200s, even in Japan, that was pretty young. People could live basically as long as they live now, but there was sort of more diseases and stuff that could get you at a young age, and that's what happened to Dogen. Maybe he would have been cured if he'd lived in our time. Anyway, point is, you don't think that the monks who followed Dogen around, who were part of his community, who had lived with him for years and years and practiced with him for years and just spent their whole lives trying to dedicate themselves to his teaching, you don't think they were attached to Dogen? You don't think they were crying when he died? I'm sure they were. And there was no historical records of this, but I'm sure that happened. So you develop attachments to whoever you are around. This is the nature of being a human. Humans are communal animals. We're not like a tiger on the plains, or I'm not sure how tigers work, but there are certain animals I know who are basically kind of loners and get by on their own, just the one animal doing his or her thing on the prairie or whatever. Humans aren't like that. We can't get by alone. It's impossible. If you hear about a human being sort of out in the jungle who survives for a year with no other human contact, you'd be amazed. This just doesn't happen. So we depend upon each other for support. And this came up in a big way for me recently. If you've seen my videos recently, the one I did, was it last week, I guess, about spending 5 days in the hospital. and coming out of it and recognizing the wonderful support I'd had from the community in the sense of the medical professionals who basically saved my life. And I've got another procedure coming up soon, so they get another chance to save my life again. We'll talk about that another time. Anyway, and then going and right after I'd come out of the hospital, a few days after the hospital stay was Father's Day. And I spent the day with my extended big Mexican family, who I just mentioned. And I realized how essential the support of my family was, and how much I really loved them, and how much I really cared for them. So you're not going to get away from that. And there is no way that Buddhism is a religion that teaches you to be totally aloof, totally like, I don't care about anybody else. I'm just going to be alone and free from everything forever and ever. Amen. That would be a ridiculous religion, and I wouldn't be any part of it. But the deal with attachment, though, is my understanding or my practice of it, is that it's not so much this kind of like, I must get rid of this attachment that I have. It's more like an immediate thing. So I don't want to cling. Let's use the word clinging now. I don't want to cling to the idea that everything must always be as it is right now, or that I must have this or that thing in order to be happy, or that this person must remain forever the same way as she is right now, or else I'm not going to be happy. It's more of an immediate thing. When you see those kind of emotions arise, just let them go. It's opening the hand of thought, as Kosho Uchiyama said. So opening the hand of thought to anything that comes by. And to just kind of figure out where this whole attachment thing sits in the version of Buddhism that I learned and practiced, I went through Dogen's Shobo Genzo 4 volumes. I have them as a PDF file, and I did a word search for the word attach or attachment. And I didn't really find a lot, but what I found was kind of eye-opening. One of them was a footnote that Nishijima Roshi had put for the word fujaku, which he translates as not belonging or transcending attachment, which he says suggests the state without division between subject and object. So very different from this idea of like, I must not be attached to my family and friends. And here's a few lines from Dogen where he uses the concept of attachment. He says, if during the course of Buddhist training mindfulness arises, we should not attach to it. So there's the idea of the immediate thing. So mindfulness is something that Buddhists are supposed to be trying to achieve, right? I mean, this is what you get from the internet and from magazines and stuff. But Dogen is saying if mindfulness arises, which is, as we say, like a positive thing, don't attach to it. Don't try to grab on it. Don't cling to it. And here's another one that I think is really interesting. Do not attach to the direct and indirect results of conduct in the triple world, which just triple world means in the universe. But soon leave home, receive the precepts, and practice the truth of the Buddhas and the patriarchs, and this will be a cause of Buddhahood for vast eons. So this is another important point. Attachment often means attachment to results. So I'm only going to do this because it's going to get me that. So when we talk about attachment or talk about non-attachment in this sense, it's doing something for the sake of doing it. It's like completely throwing yourself into doing the thing that you're doing without having this attachment to the idea that this thing ought to produce certain results and it's not worth doing unless it produces certain results. I do these videos and I have no idea what people think of them. So I do them, I try to do them without attachment. Here we go. Here's another one. This is a little weird. Untaintedness, which means sort of purity, I suppose, does not mean forcibly endeavoring to be aimless and free of attachment and detachment. So free of attachment and detachment. Nor does it mean maintaining something other than one's aim. So there's another interesting take on that. And finally, this one I think comes from the essay Life and Death by Dogen, one of my favorites. There is a very easy way to become Buddha. Not committing wrongs, being without attachment to life and death. showing deep compassion for all living beings. So compassion is what you do when you're with your family and friends. Venerating those above and pitying those below. Pitying is kind of a funny translation. I think it means having empathy or sympathy for them. Being free of the mind that dislikes the 10,000 things, like just stuff, and free of the mind that desires them. So free of desire and free of aversion. So this is also kind of in with that attachment thing. The mind being without thought and without grief. This is called Buddha. Look for nothing else. So, my summation, I guess, to all this is don't worry so much about it. If you're starting a family, you're going to become attached to your family. Don't try to become non-attached to your family, because that would be silly. Love them for who they are right now. Don't worry about whether they're going to change or whether the things you do are going to work the way you think they ought to. You just kind of adjust as it goes on, and don't be too concerned that attachment to your family in the sense of loving them and caring about them and all that stuff is a bad thing, because it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's obviously not a bad thing. It's something that we all need, and that we all need it. So I would say that non-attachment in the proper sense is just being able to let go of whatever it is that you find yourself clinging to. And I don't mean clinging to in the sense of I want to keep my wife married to me, or clinging in the physical sense. It's more the sense of like, it must be like this, it has to be like this, it has to produce these results. That's the kind of thinking that we want to, I was going to say get rid of. Get rid of is a kind of a strange way. But as it comes up, you do what was it Shohaku Okumura? No, it was the other guy. Kosho Uchiyama, Shohaku Okumura was his student. He says, opening the hand of thought. So just open the hand, let it go, let it pass, and be natural and do what naturally comes to you, and love who you love and care about who you care about. And don't be so concerned about trying to cultivate non-attachment, because that, I don't know, you get into weird things. You start to want to be like Kane from Kung Fu, which is a show nobody even remembers. But he was supposedly a Zen monk in this show from the 70s. He's wandering the Old West all alone with no friends and no ties to anyone. And people think that that's what they're supposed to be when they try to practice Zen. But that's not like that at all. I mean, it's one of the biggest, the three treasures of Buddhism are Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And Sangha is the Buddhist community. So, of course, you treasure your community, whatever that is. And if your community is your family, then treasure that too. And people who join monastic communities, they end up treasuring their monastic communities just as much as anybody treasures their traditional families. So, you're not going to get away from it. So there you are. There's my thing about attachment, and I hope you liked my Dino the Dinosaur shirt. I just got this. Found it online. I thought it was kind of cute. Anyway, if you want to donate to me being able to, well, I was going to say buy more Dino the Dinosaur shirts, but I do actually important things with the money that you send, like feed my family, feed my dog, and everything else. If you want to donate to me being able to do that, you can go to the URL that you're seeing on the screen below right now, or that you're about to hear if you're listening to the audio version, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That's where you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts, and those are my main ways of making a living. They really are. That's how I keep going, and I really appreciate your support. But as always, you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. All right, we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Hey Ziggy, are you attached to me? I think you do. I think you do kind of like me. You kind of like to hang around me, and you follow me from room to room and everything else. Oh, you don't like it when I talk to you. All right, Ziggy wants to take a nap. We'll talk to you later, Ziggy. Bye.